Some of us have been living like our biggest enemy is out there, like it's the person who left, the people who doubted us, the ones who talk behind our backs. But if we're honest, the most consistent opposition we face doesn't come from them. It comes from us. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the way we disqualify ourselves before we even try. And the wild part is we do it so often we don't even recognize it as a fight. We just call it normal. But here's the truth. You are not your enemy, but you've been acting like it. You've been criticizing yourself when you should have been encouraging yourself. You've been tearing yourself down when you were the one who needed building up. You've made it a habit to second guess your worth, to shrink when you're supposed to stand, to sit in shame when God already gave you permission to be free. Self-sabotage doesn't always show up like a dramatic breakdown. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's you procrastinating on the thing you're called to do because deep down, you don't think you're good enough to carry it. Sometimes it's you turning down opportunities because you've already convinced yourself you're not ready. Sometimes it's you going back to that unhealthy relationship, not because it's good for you, but because you don't believe you deserve anything better. That's not humility. That's bondage dressed up like comfort. And I get it. Some of us learn to protect ourselves by playing small. We learn to survive by being invisible, by not needing anything, by staying quiet. But survival is not the same as living. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I protecting myself or am I punishing myself? Because if every time you get close to something real, something healing, something stretching, you find a way to sabotage it, then maybe the fight isn't with the world. Maybe it's with the version of you that's afraid to believe you're actually worth more. Let me be clear. This isn't about pretending like you've got it all together. This is about choosing not to be your own bully anymore, choosing not to be the one who always sees the flaw first, choosing not to keep replaying every failure while ignoring the progress. You've got to learn how to speak life to yourself, how to give yourself grace, how to remind yourself that even when you fall short, you're still becoming, because what you say to you matters. The inner dialogue you have on repeat shapes your decisions, your relationships, your faith. And if all you feed yourself are reminders of what you're not, you'll never have the strength to walk into what you are. You can't keep starving your soul with negativity and expect to flourish. You can't keep agreeing with insecurity and expect to move in boldness. That's not how this works. So you've got to make a choice. Will you keep being the version of you that tears you down, or will you become the version that builds you up? Will you stay at war with yourself, or will you finally become an ally in your own growth? You don't win this fight by dominating yourself. You win by healing, by being honest, by choosing truth over fear, and by deciding that from this day forward, you will no longer stand in your own way. Your mind will either be your prison or your place of peace. And the difference is in how you fight. See, a lot of people think the real battles are external. They think it's about their circumstances, their finances, their relationships. But I've learned that the most intense battles are the quiet ones, fought in the mind, in the dark, when nobody else can hear the war you're having with your own thoughts. You can be surrounded by peace and still feel like chaos because your mind hasn't caught up to what God's trying to do in your life. Some of us are losing battles simply because we've stopped showing up for them. We've let negative thoughts live rent free for so long that they've started to feel like truth. You hear you're not good enough and you don't even challenge it anymore. It just becomes part of the script you live by. You're always going to struggle. You'll never be free. People don't really care about you. And over time, those thoughts begin to shape your identity. But just because a thought is familiar doesn't make it true. Your mind is a battlefield and you've got to learn how to fight. And I don't mean fight like striving or performing. I mean fight by refusing to let lies take root, because every lie you let sit unchallenged becomes a belief, and beliefs shape your behavior. So if you believe you're unworthy, you'll settle for less. If you believe you're broken beyond repair, you won't even try to heal. If you believe that you'll always be anxious or bitter or insecure, then you'll build a life around limitation rather than truth. That's why we have to stop being passive about our thought life. You can't afford to let every thought of your attention. You can't afford to let your emotions drive the narrative. Your feelings are valid, yes, but they're not always accurate. And just because something feels real doesn't mean it aligns with truth. You've got to start asking yourself, who told me this? Why do I believe this? Does this thought lead me toward freedom or deeper into fear? Taking control of your mind isn't a one-time fix. It's a discipline. It's a daily decision to guard your peace, a daily commitment to call out what's not from God and replace it with what is. That means speaking the truth over yourself even when it feels unnatural. It means reminding yourself of who you are even when insecurity is louder. It means standing firm when doubt creeps in and says you're not capable, not chosen, not enough. But here's the thing. This fight isn't one you have to do in your own strength. You've got help. You've got the power to renew your mind, to align your thoughts with truth, to shut down the lies before they have time to grow. But you have to choose it. Every day you have to decide, sir, will I partner with truth or will I keep entertaining what's trying to destroy me from the inside out? You were never meant to live in torment. You were never meant to be a prisoner of your own thoughts. But freedom doesn't come just from wanting it. It comes from waging war for it. It comes from fighting to protect what's holy, what's healed, what's whole. And the battleground is your mind. That's where the shift begins. That's where the chains fall. That's where the lies lose their power. So if you're tired of living defeated, start fighting differently. It's one thing to know that you need to grow, and it's another thing entirely to face the parts of yourself that are keeping you stuck. Most people don't want to talk about that version of themselves, the one that's passive aggressive, the one that gets defensive when corrected, the one that uses pride as a mask to hide deep insecurity. But if you're serious about healing, if you're serious about becoming who you were created to be, you've got to confront that version of you. You've got to sit down with it, not to condemn, but to get honest. See, we all have a version of ourselves that we've built for survival. We've used it to cope, to control, to keep people at a distance, to avoid vulnerability. That version helped us feel safe, but it's also the one that's keeping us from growing. And you can't be whole while still protecting the parts of you that thrive on dysfunction. You can't keep calling it just how I am when it's really just how you've learned it to be in pain. There comes a point where you've got to say, I see what I've become and I love myself enough not to stay this way. That takes courage. That takes humility. And that takes being willing to be uncomfortable with your own reflection, because you don't heal by blaming everyone else. You heal by being willing to see how your own fear, your own pride, your own need for control has contributed to the cycles you say you want to break. You can pray for breakthrough all day, but until you confront what you keep running from in yourself, you'll just keep recycling the same problems with new faces, new job, same bitterness, new relationship, same insecurity, new season, same sabotage. And it's not because life is against you. It's because a part of you refuses to let go of what's familiar, even if it's toxic. It's easier to repeat than to rebuild. But easy is not what you were called to. You were called to be whole, and wholeness takes work. You've got to get real about the patterns. Ask yourself, why do I always react like that? Why do I shut down when things get hard? Why do I run from accountability? Why do I keep choosing what's comfortable over what's right? These questions don't condemn you. They reveal you. And once something is revealed, it can be healed. But you can't conquer what you won't confront. Sometimes it's not the enemy outside of you that's doing the most damage. It's the one inside. The one that whispers, you're not enough. The one that says, don't try, you'll just fail. The one that convinces you to stay in cycles God already gave you the power to break. And if you're not careful, you'll keep making agreements with that voice and calling it wisdom when it's really just fear in disguise. You have to choose to believe that the healed version of you is worth fighting for. That version of you who loves without fear, who lives without shame, who moves with purpose. That version is possible, but they won't appear just because you want them to. You've got to put your current self on the altar and say, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to confront whatever has to be confronted so I can walk in freedom. It's not easy, but it's necessary, because you can't live in healing and keep hiding the version of you that keeps choosing brokenness. Everybody wants transformation until they realize what it requires. See, We love the idea of becoming something new, something healed, something powerful. But we forget that becoming someone new means something old has to die. And most of the time, what has to die isn't some obvious sin or public mistake. It's the silent agreements we've made with ourselves, the mindsets, the attitudes, the identities we've built around pain. We want to step into our purpose, but we're still clinging to the parts of us that were shaped by fear. You can't take both into your future. One has to go. It's hard to let go of the version of you that helped you survive. I get it. That version was strong. That version knew how to keep it together when everything was falling apart. That version knew how to be numb when it hurt too much to feel. But survival isn't the same as healing. And if you're not careful, you'll keep calling old wounds your personality. You'll keep defending dysfunction like it's protection. And before you know it, you'll start resisting the very thing you've been praying for just because it threatens the identity you've gotten used to. But becoming who you're called to be will cost you who you've been. It will cost you your need to always be right. It will cost you your pride. It will cost you your bitterness and the right to keep telling the same victim story over and over again. It'll cost you your comfort with the familiar, even when it's broken, because healing always requires surrender, not just of what's hurting you, but of the version of yourself that keeps holding on to it. Sometimes we keep things around not because we need them, but because we're afraid of who we'll be without them. That anger, it gave you a sense of control. That fear, it made you feel protected. That insecurity, it became a reason not to try. But the truth is, those things have become chains, and God never called you to live in bondage just because the chains feel safe. He called you to freedom. And freedom means saying goodbye to whatever no longer serves who you're becoming. That's not easy. It's not supposed to be. Death never is. But resurrection always follows surrender. When you lay down the old, you make room for the new. And this version of you that you've been asking God for, the one who walks in boldness, the one who moves in peace, the one who leads with love, that version can't coexist with the one who's still building walls around old wounds. You've got to choose, and it's not just a one-time decision. It's daily. Every day you'll be tempted to slip back into what's familiar. Every day you'll hear that voice telling you it's safer to stay the same. But every day you'll also have the chance to say, not anymore. I'm not who I used to be. I'm not stuck in what broke me. I'm not choosing bondage just because it feels normal. I'm becoming. I'm changing. I'm letting go. So don't just admire the idea of growth. Step into it. Let the old you rest so the real you can rise.